And how many times do we hear people talk themselves out of a sale?
We're talking about closing.
What good closing is, what bad closing is.
Well, you got to read the room, don't you, Carlos?
So let's start with timing.
Being bold, saucy, and audacious.
You got a good understanding at the beginning about what's going to happen at the end.
They have to be the hero, don't they, Carlos?
You start the sales call off understanding the decision that's going to get made.
It was like the American Ninja Warrior of closing.
I get a sense there's a strong emotional connection to the problem that's being solved.
So you got to be present, hyper present in the room.
There's no magic formula for it. It's a wistful look in the eye.
That is showing they're ready to pull the trigger.
Because if there's not a strong emotional connection to the deal, he ain't ready yet. She ain't ready yet.
Let's do this shit. Enough, you know?
We're going to watch it and we're going to know that that is when the prospect decided to buy.
Welcome back, closers. Welcome back to Unscripted Selling. How you doing, Carlos?
Hey, closers. Hey, Sophia. Absolutely tickety-boo. Lovely to see you on this fine morning. How are you doing?
Just tickety-boo. Just tickety-boo. If you're driving, if you're on your way to the meeting that's going to change your book of business for the rest of the year, then I want you to look at yourself in the mirror and say out loud, I am just tickety-boo.
Tickety-boo. That's right.
We have quite a tickety-boo topic today, don't we, Carlos?
Tell me about it. What are we talking about?
We're talking about closing. Oh, yeah, baby. You know, if you search books about closing on Google, you're going to get about 9,000 different titles. It's that every salesperson, they want to know, how do I close more deals? What do I say to bring that deal over the line? So if that's what you're interested in, then keep listening. But before you keep listening, why don't you just like and subscribe to our ding dang darn wonderful channel?
Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Hey, you know what, Sophia? Closing's such a cool topic. And do you know how many sales guys do we meet on a weekly basis who say to us, oh, I'm a closer. And, you know, you ask them a couple of questions, and they don't even know what it means, right?
How cringe.
What does it actually mean?
I think if you're walking around saying I'm a closer, that's really cringe.
Yeah, I think so.
It's very cringy. Okay. Anyways.
So what have we got to think about? I tell you what we're going to think about today. We're gonna let's break it out this way, and I hope we get to all these topics, but let's break it out. I want to know how to think about timing. Right? So when should we close? I want to think about what good closing is, what bad closing is.
Mm-hmm.
I want to break a few closing myths if we can. And, you know, let's give some tips and guidance and advice. Let's make sure that anyone who gives us, 25, 30 minutes of their day today, let's make sure that they come out of this experience with, they just got a new insight that in reality, in this topic, you get a new insight, you develop a little bit more technique. So let's start with timing. So, Sophia, what do you think? Let's go real basic. When's the right time to close? What do you think? When is it?
Well, you got to read the room, don't you, Carlos? And I think a lot of times salespeople will talk themselves out of the sale. So they'll focus so much on the pitch deck and the solution and how great it is. Meanwhile, the prospect is giving them vocabulary, language, body language that is showing they're ready to pull the trigger, and the salesperson will proceed to talk themselves out of the sale. So you got to be present, hyper present in the room, and you got to be paying attention, and you got to know when it's time to go from country doctor to what?
New York surgeon. New York surgeon. Do you know, it's interesting, right? How many sales calls do you and I, for clients and for our own team, how many do we review on a weekly basis? Probably
endless.
10, 20. A lot. A lot of them. We'll review an awful lot of sales calls. And how many times do we hear people talk themselves out of a sale?
It's so hard to listen to.
Brutal to listen to. And I remember once a guy once said to me, you can never listen your way out of a sale, right? Never.
Ain't that the truth?
But you can talk out of the sale.
That's right. And me and Carlos are not talking this morning about the cheesy old, the guy's got his hand on his wallet, that's a buying sign. Or we're not talking about any of this sort of archaic closing technique, jargon. That's not what we're bringing today.
No, today, when it comes to here's my watchword or my kind of model on timing on closing. And the reality is, you and I both know, and our clients both know, the wrong time to close a sale or close for a decision, even if that decision is just the next step. I mean, it's not every decision has got a check attached to it, right? Some decisions have got a check attached to them, and some decisions are a decision for a next step, and they always need a close. But the right time to close is not at the end. You close it at the beginning. You got a good understanding at the beginning about what's going to happen at the end. Is it a Jim Collins line that? But is it begin, have the end in mind, right? Begin with the end in mind. You start the sales call off understanding the decision that's going to get made. Then you haven't got to do all these old closing techniques at the end. Not always. Sometimes there's still a little bit of magic in that old school stuff. The old school stuff still has a little bit of magic in it, but we can't be overly reliant on those old school techniques.
We can't. We tell our clients often, don't we, Carlos, that the close, if you're going to ask for the order, it should be like getting down on one knee. You should have the same process for popping the question to a significant other and asking them to marry you. If you're going to get down on one knee, if you're going to pop the question, you should be at least 99.9% sure they're going to say yes. 100%. So if you're coming into the close with that same mindset, you don't have to heavily rely on these techniques.
So let's close out timing and then we'll go into those ridiculous techniques that all salespeople are taught. Ridiculous. And that's going to be the fun part of the show, right? But in terms of timing, the beginning is when you close. We know that. But then there's a point in time when you know that it's ready to happen. And, I don't think there is I don't think you wait till the end of the meeting to know it's going to happen. It can happen at any point in the meeting. And for me, it's the moment when I believe two important things have happened. One important thing is the prospect understands and can rationalize the deal on an intellectual level. Now, that doesn't make the sale, doesn't make the close, but it's what protects the close from the environment. Because as soon as you're out the room, that deal has got to stand on its own 2 feet. So there's a moment when, number one, the prospect understands, can tell themselves a story that makes sense about the intellectual validity of the sale. But then that isn't the close. That's what protects the close. The close is when I get a sense there's a strong emotional connection to the problem that's being solved. And you can, there's no magic formula for it. It's a wistful look in the eye. It's a little sadness in the voice. It's microexpressions. It's tonality. There's no word that a prospect will say that says this is ready, apart from maybe, hey, how do we get this shit going, right? That would be cool. But even then, beware, because if there's not a strong emotional connection to the deal, he ain't ready yet. She ain't ready yet. And if you believe that there isn't a fundamental, intellectually robust rationale, they ain't ready yet. They might close today, but it's going to fall apart. It will fall apart as soon as you leave the room. So timing to take them over the line, those are your two tests. And it can happen 10 minutes in, an hour in, 90 minutes in. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's like, what was that? There was a Supreme Court justice here in America who when somebody was trying to describe what pornography is, what classifies as pornography, and she said, you know it when you see it. You'll know if you're looking for it, if you're looking for that wistful look, if you're listening for that tonality, you'll know it when you see it.
And when you do hear it, don't proceed to continue to pummel the person with features and benefits.
And so that's very
right. So you're like,
important.
and here's what we can do. And this, it's like, well, don't do that.
Stop. When it's ready, stop. When it's ready,
stop.
You then you take it over the line. Now, taking it over the line is what most people think is closing. The close happened before. Taking it over the line is a very particular skill that we'll talk about in a minute. But I want to first talk about how you don't take it over the line. And what I'm referring to here, so for are these, the old school sales, the old school closing techniques.
Oh, yeah.
We don't go near these. Sophia, what am I talking about? Tell the gang. Tell our closers.
Well, we're talking about, I bet in my old world, I had a manager whose claim to fame was a 2-minute long silent close. Yeah. You closers, you know what I'm talking about. It's a classic. We all love it. It's when you get to the end of the presentation. Now you've laid down the price on them, and you have the contract on their nice, whatever alabaster desk or mahogany desk, and you put your nice Mont Blanc pen on top of the contract, and you slowly slide it towards them. And then you just kind of give them like a staring contest, and you wait for them to sign. It is so awkward. And I had a VP sales back in the day who's like, I once sat there 2 whole minutes in silence, which 2 whole minutes in silence, like why would you put that poor prospect through that? There's a silent close. There's the assumptive close, which the assumptive close isn't the worst. It's not the worst we've seen.
If it's done at the right time, it can be. Just as that kind of red zone game, that end zone game, it can be okay. But it doesn't close a deal that's not ready.
No, it doesn't. So the assumptive close would be like, great, Carlos, take a look at your calendar. I'm thinking October 28th is a great day to start. So we'll get everything cooking for you to get started on the 28th. So assuming that they're going to start, there's this.
Press real hard, George. Third copy's yours.
It's yours.
That's the assumptive, right?
Yeah, right. George. There's the summary close. So, George, here's what we've covered so far. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So you're struggling with this, you're frustrated with this, you're concerned about this. And so we agreed that the best way to move forward and the best solution is X, Y, and Z. So what do you say?
There's the Zig Ziglar does a little, and I actually like Zig. Who doesn't like Zig?
Who doesn't like Zig Ziglar?
But Zig has got a little spin on that where you use their words. Here's the phrase. So you told me, and then you tell them what you told me, right? So it's like, so you told me, and it's essentially, it's an old summary close.
I like it.
But Zig's an old master. What can you do? Who wouldn't buy from Zig, right?
There's the puppy dog close, the back up the hearse and let them smell the flowers close.
Back up the hearse, let them smell the flowers. That was a close that they taught me when I used to sell. 30 years ago for Gillette. The puppy dog close is when you try. Hey, take it home, see if the kids like it. Do you know there are certain industries where that's magic? There are certain industries, in the pet store when they hand the little kid the puppy, that puppy's going home with that kid, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's the puppy dog. But there are some industries where that's magic. Hey, you know
software.
What? There's a hell of a lot. I was about to say software. It's used badly in software. We've got loads of software clients closers. And whilst the puppy dog is legitimate, people overuse it. There's no agreement about its use. There's something legitimate about, a 1 week free trial. But if you're giving it away like it's worthless, guess what? A client's going to think it's worthless. They're not even going to try it in that 7-day period. Now there are so there is a way of using the puppy dog in software, but you've got to be really careful, and it's got to be really really intelligently delivered and structured. But no, there are things like, how many things have you currently got on your phone that you pay for that were a 1-week free trial that you never switched off?
No,
loads.
Oh God, I hate that.
I've got loads of things on my phone that were 1-day free, 7-day free trials. In fact, I signed up for one about a week ago, and it hit my card the day I signed up for it. And I thought, wait a minute, what happened to the 1-week free trial? And then I was a little bit taken aback, but in reality, I thought they know I was going to buy it anyway. So I can't even remember what
was it
on my phone. Let me think about what it was. It was. I can't remember now.
That's how often it happens, then, I guess.
That's how often. You know what? It will have been. If I have a look on my iPad, it might have even turned up on my iPad already, if there is a. Nah, it might just been a.
That happened to me one time with a Shakespeare app, where it literally you can read and listen and watch, and it was expensive. It was like a nice $15.99 app. I was like, all right, I'm gonna invest in myself.
In my Shakespeare.
Really gonna invest in myself here.
Your Shakespeare.
That's right. Anyways, I have all the tragedies on my phone.
That's a good show. Kiss Me, Kate. Kiss Me, Kate. Brush up your Shakespeare. If you've never seen Brush Up Your Shakespeare on Kiss Me, Kate, you're doing yourself a disservice. Carlos and his encyclopedic knowledge of musicals once again comes to save the day. So you've got the puppy dog close. What about everybody's favorite? Tell them about the impending event close. This is terrible. Terrible.
Oh, is the impending event? I get confused between the urgency and the impending event. I mean, I know that when I was selling TV, when I was selling airtime, I'd be like, well, these rates on CNN are only going to be available until the end of the day. So let me know. Tomorrow they're shooting back up. So what are we going to do?
Yeah, that's the impending event close. And you know what? Once again, sometimes if something needs a little kick over the line, and here's where when it doesn't make sense, it's so conspicuous as a move, it actually seeks to undermine any credibility you've built.
Yes.
It actually creates hostility. It pierces the veil, if you like, right? It's like you open the curtain to see the Wizard of Oz is nothing but running a machine. It's like, It's the wizard behind the curtain. If it's used badly. Yeah. Now, sometimes the one, if you are going to use an impending event just to kick it over the line, you got to make sure it's built on an extremely strong logical rationale. Like CNN rates going up at the end of the day isn't a logical rationale. Now, a thorough, a cool understanding that, the company typically runs its stock down at the end of the quarter, and that's well understood, and it was like it's been part of the fabric of the conversation anyway. Well, then it's got like a tiny bit of horsepower, that as a technique, but only a tiny bit. So I think if you haven't built that intellectual framework for it, it actually seeks to actually move the prospect away from the close.
I agree.
It's counterproductive.
I agree. Why don't you, what about some, give us some like real world examples that would.
Of what? Of bad closing or good closing?
Of good. Let's give the closers some good closing.
So let's get to good. Let's get to good. Before we do good closing, okay, and by the way, there's loads of other bads. The red letter day, the God close. I mean, there's loads of them.
Oh my goodness, right.
But before we move to the good closes, hey, we're about to drop gold. Gotta like, you gotta subscribe. I mean, we've had fun up till now about what not to do. And I know that some of you guys listening or watching to this have gone, you opened up the episode. Here's what happened. You opened up the episode and you think, hey, cool closing. I'm a good closer. Let's watch this about closing. And you watched it thinking, this is going to confirm what a rock star I am. Then for the last sort of 15 minutes, Sophia has been telling you what not to do. And I know some of you have been thinking, oh, that is actually what I do. So now I know you're waiting for how to do it properly. Hit like, hit subscribe. Let's talk about how to do this properly. So the first thing to do is Jim Collins, begin with the end in mind. A reasonable understanding at the beginning of the meeting about what the decision's going to be. That's it. You close at the beginning. Hey, George, at the end, we're going to talk a lot, but at the end of this meeting, we're going to probably be well positioned to figure out if we should be working together. Is that fair? If we're not going to be working together, I'm all right with that. If we're going to be working together, this is what it looks like. So that's the close right at the beginning. Now, it doesn't close it, but that's the close. Then we're going to do pain, and talk about we're going to build a great intellectual framework for the deal to stand on. And then we're going to be very vigilant for the emotional, the micro expressions, the tonality, the look in the prospect's eye, the wistful look in the prospect's eye. We're going to watch it and we're going to know that is when the prospect decided to buy. And we know that decision's robust because when we walk out the door, it's got that great intellectual framework to stand on. It's like it's got a great ROI, or there's a good reason for this deal to survive. The environment that's going to attack this deal. And in fact, Sophia afterwards, she'll tell you how to make sure that deal's a little protected. So you're ready at the right point. And when you feel it's the right point, you don't want to, remember Sophia said, don't overtalk it. At the right point, you're going to say, all right, it's what I do. I say, hey, George, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling that this is ready. What should we do? What should we do? That's it. What should we do?
They have to be the hero, don't they, Carlos?
It's them that's making this great decision, not me. What should we do, George?
Yeah.
Now, I remember doing this. Let me tell you a story. I did, and there's something in this, right? Because sometimes at that point, you can almost see, you feel the prospect kind of lean forward a bit. You see the prospect go, wow. And there's something holding them back. They're so desperate to say, let's do it. Let's do it. You can almost see the words on the lips, but something's holding them back. That's why at that point, this is what we were talking about earlier. At that point, sometimes there's just a little pull that's needed, just a little shift. Nice. If you feel that there's a hesitation there, that's when you go for just a little urgency or a little assumption. All those old school closing techniques that Sophia was talking about earlier, that's when they just might, for that last inch, just might need a little pull over the line. Most of the time at that point, the prospect says, let's do it. But if you feel them about to say it and then stop themselves, that's when I think that's when the real closer pulls it over the line. Maybe I will say sometimes, so what do you think, George? What should we do? And I see the hesitation and I'll say, let's do it, right? Sometimes you just got to get bold and saucy and outrageous. I remember being, and I tell you what, this is going back to when we first started the business, and I really needed the deal. And you know what? It wasn't even theater. I was just so pissed off at my poor closing, so upset with myself. And I'm sat there in downtown, I think we were downtown. Where was it? Wynwood or something like that. With these two brothers that owned a business, and I'm not going to say who they were, but there was two brothers that owned a business. And I said to them, so what should we do? And I was half sad, half mad, half desperate, half frightened. I said, what should we do? And one of them hesitated. The other one said, let's do it. And I said, let's do it today, right? And then they looked at each other and they went, well, all right. So I said, I've got a contract. And I reached into my bag And I put a contract on the table. And they went, oh, today. And I said, and honestly, I was pissed off. I just said, or not. And I reached for it. And they went, no, we'll read it. I reached for it, but they pulled it towards them. I'll read it. So I said, you'll read it. It's 1 page. Read it. So they read it. And I said, they said, yeah, we'll look at it. We'll look at it. Oh, okay, should we sign it today? And honestly, it wasn't theater. I just said, or don't. I don't mind. And they said, well, okay, have you got a pen? Right? They said. And I said, this is an office, right? They said, yeah. I said, sure, you've got pens here somewhere.
Okay, was this guy Dumb and Dumber?
And they burst out laughing because it was like, shit, I've got to go and get my own pen. Like, yeah, you have. It was like the least closey close they'd ever seen. But this one didn't need pulling. Sometimes you've got to be a little bold for sure, a little saucy,
my gosh.
a little fun.
I have
Take
one.
It away. Go ahead.
My longest client, my first client here at Absolute Sales Development. He was really, to bring him over the line was like, oh my, this guy made me go like through the American scrum. It was like the American Ninja Warrior of closing. I got, hit by the foam thing. I had to swim. I got, cream pie in my face. It's just, So I was really it got to the point where I'm like, this is enough. And he was like, well, so I really want to know how the program is going to be. And is it Monday? I said, look, I literally said his name. And I said, let's do this shit. Okay. Are you looking for reasons to do it or reasons not to do it?
Beautiful.
Let's do this shit. Sign the letter of engagement. And that's it. We're doing this. And he's like, okay. And he was like, to this day, he's like, that was the best thing. He's still my client 5 years later. He's like, that's the best thing you could have done because I was overcooking it. So I think there is no one answer.
You know what was brilliant? That was bold. It was saucy. Stop. It was outrageous. It was funny. It was like that. But it needed that little pull. It needed an inch, right? Just that extra
Dude,
inch.
Let's do this shit. Enough,
Enough. Time.
Let's go.
So let me summarize. You close it at the beginning. You build that intellectual framework. You look for the emotional connection. And you don't let it get too far because as soon as you sense it, that's time to say, so what's next?
Yeah.
And then they say, if it looks, sometimes they'll say, let's do it, in which case, let's do it because time kills all deals. And I mean, do it. If we're going to do it, let's do it. If they look like they're hesitating, you give them the words. Let's do it. Let's just get this done, like Sophia said. Or sometimes you're going to say, you know what the right thing to do? The right thing to do is just do this now, right? Yeah, right. They're going to do it. Give them the words. It's already built the rationale. Sometimes, you can dress it up as a pipeline purge. I've done that many times. And by the way, I keep a real tight pipeline. I keep maximum 10 deals in my pipeline at any point in time, which means I haven't got any space for it. Hey, you know what? If we're going to do it, let's do it because I can't put anything else in my pipeline. So I only want to put in what's going to get done. Is this doing it? Are we doing it? Let's do it. Let's fall in love. Well, who was that? Gershwin? It wasn't Gershwin. Let's do it. Even the birds and bees do it. Let's do it. So summarize for us, Sophia. Close the deal. What's bad? What's good?
Well, the Benjamin Franklin is kind of bad, and reading the room, being bold, saucy, and audacious, and knowing that hey, not one size fits all with prospects, but helping your prospect make a great decision is the right thing to do. Whether it's being bold or it's just shutting up or going negative and saying or not.
Guys, thanks for spending 30 minutes with us. You are closers. I hope following today, you are even better closers. Go out and close some business today. And don't forget to like, to subscribe, tell all your friends, all your closer friends about unscripted selling. But for now, I'm going to wish you good selling, and it's goodbye from Sophia.
And I'm backing up the hearse and letting you smell the flowers from Carlos.
Take care,
Thanks for
folks.
listening.